Okay, let's dive into this because I'm sure we've all been there. You know the feeling. You look up from your phone and poof, an hour has just completely vanished. You were just going to check one little thing and suddenly you're deep down some rabbit hole of videos and posts. It's so frustrating, right? It almost feels like you're not in control. But what if I told you that for some people, that whole experience is, well, it's totally alien to them?
I mean, really think about that. You might be the person who gets totally sucked into the endless scroll on TikTok or Instagram, but your friend or your partner, they can just pick up their phone, check what they need, and then put it right back down. No big deal. So what gives? Is their willpower just better than yours? Or is there something else, something deeper, going on inside their brain? All right, so to really get to the bottom of this mystery, we've got to start with the usual suspect. It's the explanation you've probably heard a million times. The infamous dopamine trap.
And you know, it's a really powerful idea. The common thinking is that these apps are just perfectly engineered to hijack our brain's reward system. Every single notification, every new piece of content you see, it's all designed to give us this tiny, pleasurable jolt of a chemical called dopamine. And that little jolt makes us want to come back for more and more and more.
This is that classic habit loop right here in action. So it all starts with a cue, right? Maybe you're feeling a little bored or maybe a little anxious. That feeling triggers the action. You grab your phone, you open an app, and you start scrolling. The reward is that hit of something new, that little dopamine rush. And because it felt kind of good, or, at least it distracted you, your brain learns to do it all over again. Sounds like it explains everything, doesn't it?
Well, maybe not. Because that whole model doesn't really explain your friend who can just stop. And this leads us to a completely different idea, one that's way less about addiction and a whole lot more about simple brain chemistry. What if the reason some people aren't glued to their screens isn't because they're better at resisting that dopamine trap, but what if, for them, there's no trap to begin with?
So, let's talk about the low dopamine mind. Now, this name is a little tricky. It doesn't mean these people actually have less dopamine. The key, the really crucial point here, is that their reward system might just have a higher threshold. They need something bigger, more meaningful, or way more stimulating to get that same aha feeling of satisfaction. For a brain like that, the tiny repetitive hits you get from scrolling through a feed, they just don't register. It's not rewarding. It's just boring.
So what does this actually look like out in the real world? Let's break down why some people just aren't hooked by the same digital candy. Now this is where it gets really interesting. On one side, you have what we can call the craver brain. That's the typical model we always talk about. It's satisfied by that constant stream of low-level new stuff. For that brain, scrolling feels good. It's a reward. But on the other side, the low dopamine brain has a much, much higher bar for what it considers engaging. It needs something with real impact, and that makes endless scrolling feel unfulfilling and fast. I love this analogy because it just makes everything click. Think about it. One person is totally happy grazing on little snacks all day. A chip here, a cookie there. The other person isn't even tempted by those snacks. Why? Because they're holding out for a rich, complex, truly satisfying gourmet meal. Neither one is right or wrong. They just have fundamentally different ideas of what's rewarding.
And here's another way to think about it. For a brain that has that high engagement bar, the actual reward value of seeing one more generic cat video is effectively zero. Nothing. Zilch. There's no chemical payoff. So why on earth would they keep scrolling? The simple answer is, they wouldn't. They'd get bored and move on to find something that's actually worth their time.
And this is probably the most important takeaway from this whole discussion. If our scrolling habits are actually tied to our fundamental brain chemistry, then we need to completely change how we talk about digital distraction.
Just let that sink in for a second. We so often frame this as a moral issue, right? Laziness, a lack of self-control, poor willpower. But this whole perspective suggests that's just wrong. It's not about being a better person or a weaker person. It might just be about the neurobiological hand you were dealt. So here's what it all boils down to. That constant urge to scroll, it's not a universal thing. Your brain's unique reward threshold plays a massive role, and that means your scrolling habits are not a measure of your character or your willpower. But here's the best part. Knowing this can actually empower you. If you realize you might have a craver brain, you can stop beating yourself up and start designing a digital life with better boundaries, one that works with your brain chemistry, not against it. And all of this leaves us with a really fascinating and kind of big final question. Our entire digital world, from social media to news feeds, it really seems like it's all built to cater to that grazer, to the craving brain. But if a huge chunk of the population is wired completely differently, are we designing a world that just leaves them out, or worse, just bores them into checking out completely? What would our technology even look like if it was designed for the gourmet? It's definitely something to think about.